It's been nearly 4 years since American exchange student Amanda Knox was arrested in Italy and accused of killing her English roommate in a sexual encounter that somehow turned deadly violent. Knox, along with her boyfriend at the time, was convicted in 2009, but today the 23-year-old got new hope that she will not pass into middle age in a foreign prison. ABC's Elizabeth Vargas has a story for our series, Crime and Punishment.
Per quanto riguarda Amanda Knox.
This was the scene when American college student Amanda Knox was convicted for violently killing her British roommate Meredith Kircher while studying abroad in Italy.
Knox and her former boyfriend were found guilty.
Amanda Knox found guilty of murder in Perugia, Italy.
Found guilty of sexually assaulting and killing Miss Kircher.
Pure chaos amidst cheers and outrage in Perugia, Italy. A nightmare come true for Knox's family. Just an hour after hearing his daughter's 26-year prison sentence, Knox's father, Kurt, and her sister, Deanna, were overwhelmed.
I think those of us who have family members, who have children, couldn't help but wonder what it was like that moment, standing in that courtroom tonight and hearing that word, guilty.
I collapsed shaking.
It's not what anybody wants to experience. It's terrible.
Knox has lived in an Italian prison since her arrest nearly 4 years ago, as has her then Italian boyfriend Raffaele Sollecito, who was also convicted for the brutal murder. For the past 6 months, a new panel of Italian judges and jurors are hearing Knox's appeal, which she hopes will overturn her conviction. And finally, today, there is a glimmer of hope for Amanda and her family. 2 independent DNA experts who have pored over key DNA evidence in the case since February filed their 144-page review of the DNA, crucial to Knox's appeal. And their findings seem to support Amanda's defense. The report states that DNA traces on 2 key pieces of evidence were too tiny to be tested, and that proper procedures were not followed. The evidence in question, the victim's bra clasp that was said to contain DNA of Sollecito, and the alleged murder weapon, the kitchen knife found in Sollecito's apartment with the victim's DNA on it. Knox's family and lawyers have always argued the DNA was contaminated and even asked for an independent DNA review during Knox's trial. That request was denied. Today's independent review even stated, quote, "It cannot be ruled out that the result obtained may stem from contamination." The reports confirm what American DNA expert Greg Hampikian told us earlier this year after reviewing the evidence.
Each time you handle something, even if you have gloves on, you are increasing the chance of contamination. If you're really being careful, you're changing gloves after each touch of a piece of evidence. They're clearly, from the video anyway, it doesn't seem that they're doing that. So they're wearing gloves, but they're touching multiple things.
The news was huge for both Knox and Sollecito and critical in their chance for freedom. Knox heard the news on the television in her prison cell.
She's extremely happy. She knew she was innocent, but having independent experts say that the DNA evidence is unreliable and potentially contaminated is a big step towards bringing her home.
I was thrilled. I was, worried for Amanda and how she was hearing and how she was reacting.
Amanda's mother, Etta Mellis, got the news today in Italy.
I was able to speak to the priest in jail who was there when she heard the news. He said you could see the light in her eyes and she could finally breathe for the first time in over 3 years.
Knox's defense also says a key in their appeal is that there is no DNA at all from Knox in the bedroom where the murder happened.
Nowhere in Meredith's room where the murder took place and where Meredith's body was found is there a single fingerprint from Amanda? A single piece of DNA from Amanda?
Nothing.
A hair?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Judy Bacharach is a journalist who has covered the case from the start.
I was pretty positive when I started working on the Amanda Knox story that she was guilty. But as I examined the so-called evidence against her, and as I examined the judge's words particularly, I became convinced that she is not guilty. Absolutely convinced. This was a railroad job.
But there is plenty of DNA from this man, Rudy Guede, a local drifter and the third person convicted for the murder of Meredith Kircher. Guede's bloody handprints seen here on the wall of the crime scene, his saliva on the victim, and his fingerprints on her bra.
There is lots of DNA, and there are fingerprints from Rudy Guede. There is none from Amanda Knox.
Guede himself admitted he was in the cottage that Kircher shared with Knox the night she was killed, but did not participate in the crime. This week, Guede took the stand in an appeal hearing to address claims by fellow inmates that he told them Knox and Solecito were not in the house that fatal night. But Guede insisted their claims are not true.
I was hoping that Rudy would actually own up to his responsibility and essentially tell the court that Amanda and Raphael had nothing to do with it.
Ultimately, the truth may simply come down to science.
I think the story of how this crime was committed doesn't fit the evidence collected.
Please, you guys.
Knox's family has defended her and visited her in prison since day one.
You know, no matter how you look at it, this isn't going to be over anytime soon. Mm-hmm. How do you continue on through
You have to,
that knowledge?
you stay focused on Amanda and making sure that that light is there for her. And you just work through it. You just have to. I mean, you're not going to leave an innocent daughter in a foreign prison.
For Knox and her family, the emotional and financial toll, more than $1 million to date, are nearly too much to bear. Can you ever really go back to life as it was after what you've been through?
You know, none of us is ever going to be the same. But we'll all make a new normal and just kind of go from there.
I'm Elizabeth Vargas for Nightline in New York.